It's time for CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Find us on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, YouTube, and TuneIn. The easiest thing to do is tell Alexa or Siri to play CBJ in 30. Here's your host, Bob McElligott.
Indeed, the calendar has flipped. It is now December, and it is the Christmas season. And for the Blue Jackets, they usher out the month of November on a bit of a sour note, losing on Saturday in Brooklyn to the New York Islanders by the score of 2-0. Welcome to CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Today, of course, a Monday mailbag edition of the show, and I'm going to be taking all of the questions that you have sent me on Twitter at BobbyMacSports. But first, I do want to tell you about my good friends over at Telhio Credit Union and the good things that they can do for you, the way they can help you in this holiday season. They can do that by helping you with a holiday loan. Maybe you need cash for a big purchase. Maybe you want to get have a winter getaway. Maybe you just need to pay off some high-interest credit cards or consolidate your debt. You can do all of that, getting the cash that you need right now with a personal loan from Telhio. The rates are lower than most credit cards. Find out about those rates. Find out about the loan itself. Find out about all of the services that Telhio Credit Union provides by going to their website at telhio.org. Surf around. If you can't find the answer to your question, on the right-hand side of the screen, you will see a live chat option that's available during business hours. Just click on that live chat option, and somebody will get there on the screen immediately to help you to navigate the site and get you the information that you're having a hard time finding. Or you can just stop by any of the local offices of Telhio Credit Union, talk to somebody face-to-face, and they too will be very glad to help you out and explain to you why you should join a credit union, and more specifically, why you should join Telhio Credit Union. Telhio Credit Union is open to everyone in central and southwestern Ohio. They are federally insured by NCUA. So, yes, the Blue Jackets, they started off the week last week with a win at home over Ottawa, had a very disappointing loss to Philadelphia, then came back with a huge win against Pittsburgh on Friday, but capped off the week losing to the Islanders, as I said earlier, 2-0. So they finished the week at .500. It's not where they wanted to be. It's not what they played better than that, is what I'm trying to say. They played better in many aspects than that. Saturday was a tough night all around. In addition to not getting any goals, they also lost a defenseman as Zach Werenski suffered a shoulder injury. It was announced yesterday by the team that Werenski is expected to miss 4 weeks. That's going to be a heavy blow to the Blue Jackets lineup. There's no question about that. And that's why I'm going to lead off with this question from Jay Alexanders to get us going today. He says, if Zach Werenski is out for an extended period of time, does that all but put the nail in the coffin for the season for a team already playing .500 or sub-500 hockey so far? They can't score. They're near the bottom of the league. His offense has made the difference in a few games. Well, there's no doubt. It has. All of that is factual. His offense has made the difference in a few games. He has been a guy that has really looked good this year on the blue line. I think in the offensive part of the game, when it comes to clutch goals, clutch scoring, he has outperformed Seth Jones to this point of the season, although Seth looks like he is starting to get hot right now. So I will say this to you. Is that the nail in the coffin? No, it is not. It is going to make it tougher for this team. There's no doubt about that. Somebody is going to have to step up on the back end or at one of the forward positions. Heaven knows there are plenty of guys that play forward that have underperformed to this point. And I'm going to talk about a couple of those guys as we go along here. But it's about people filling that offensive void that Zach Werenski has provided for the team. It is not the nail in the coffin. As John Tortorella said after the game on Saturday, it's part of the game. There are going to be injuries. You can't do anything about that. You just hope that you suffer very few, and that if there are injuries, they aren't very long-term. This one, it's going to hurt. There's no question about it. This one's going to hurt, but they've got to find a way to get through it. I would assume Scott Harrington's going to jump into the lineup. If they call somebody from Cleveland, Adam Clendenning is usually that guy that's back and forth on that Cleveland-Columbus shuttle, if you will, to be a seventh defenseman. The other thing that they could do, and I'm not saying they are going to do this, but, it's a definite possibility, is you could bring up Andrew Peeke, who's been playing well in Cleveland, and you could put him in if he's going to play, if you feel he's going to get regular minutes on a regular basis. You could do that, but I would expect that Harrington goes in and Clendening comes along and acts as a seventh defenseman. That's usually the way things work. But, things can get unusual here and there. So just wait and see. Wait for the official transaction whenever it does come. But there are other people that they have to pick it up. There is no doubt about that. And let's just move on to that next subject with a couple of questions here. JCP starts by saying, why not do a healthy scratch for some of the guys not performing? For example, Cam Atkinson. The next one, Lenaford says, or Lenaford, I guess that is, says Cam is normally a high producer. He has 0 goals, assists, and points in the last 4 games, only 12 to 13 minutes playing time the last 2. He has missed wide when he does shoot. Does his play this year reflect Artemi Panarin's departure? What are your thoughts on Cam without saying the word confidence? All right, I can do it. That's a challenge, and I can do it. First of all, let me address the first question about the healthy scratches. That's coming, I think. If these guys don't soon get off the schneid, and if they don't start playing the way they need to be playing, and it's not just Cam, there's other guys on the list, but that's coming. I don't think they're going to leave John Tortorella with any other choice but to do that at some point. They're not at the point yet. But, as was mentioned, Cam's minutes are way down. The reason for that is he's not producing. John Tortorella always likes to say that when he is playing well, he is darting in and out. And he hasn't been darting on a regular basis throughout the course of the year, and he hasn't been darting in games. Well, he did in the Winnipeg game last Saturday, and since then he really hasn't done it. He really hasn't been noticeable. Now, to further go on and break down the second question, does his play reflect the departure of Artemi Panarin? Yeah, it does to an extent. There's no doubt it does, because Panarin drew so much traffic that left so much more room for Cam Atkinson, and he scored 41 goals last year. He utilized that room. There's no doubt that departure has had an effect on his game. However, he's a goal scorer, and he's had 30 in the season. He's had 40 in the season, and you just have to overcome that. You have to find a way to overcome that, and he hasn't found a way to do it yet. So, yes, it affects him because he doesn't have the time and space, because there's not another guy on his line drawing a double team, but he's got to find a way to get through it. I mean, he is expected to be one of the main scorers on this team. He is expected to be one of the main cogs in the wheel here. He is expected to be a big part, if not, you can make the argument, the biggest part of the core of this team. And he's just not performing so far. So I didn't use the word. You said that there was one word I wasn't allowed to use, and I don't think I have to use it, because I think in this case, this is just a matter of try harder. And when you get your opportunities, you got to find a way to bury it. And it doesn't have to do with that word anymore. I think that word that I'm not allowed to use goes so far, but then it gets to a point where it's like, come on, it's not even that anymore. I don't know what it is, but it's not even that. Find a way. Find a way. Be the superstar that you're expected to be here, because it's there. It's in you. We've seen it in you. We've seen Cam Atkinson score a lot of goals before Artemi Panarin's arrival. We saw him score more once Panarin arrived, of course. But he's not coming back. And there's nobody of his talent that is going to be on the line with Cam Atkinson. So he has got to figure it out. And that is his job to figure it out. That's his responsibility to figure it out. And I think he will figure it out. But I understand, and you're not the only one whose patience is getting thin. There are a lot of people whose patience is getting thin, with him and some others. And when Tortorella's patience has gotten thin enough, then it could lead to some other things. Could be coming. I hope it doesn't, because if that comes, then that's just meaning that there are a lot more bad things that are coming before we see good things, right? You start talking about a healthy scratch on a player of that caliber, then there are going to be some more bad things on the horizon than good things. Let's see. What shall I go with next? A couple of these. Here we go. Crisp Supreme says, we've got 3 months until the trade deadline. Let's start a speculation question. Who do we trade, and for whom do we get in return? First of all, to start talking about trade deadline, you don't even know where you're going to be. If it was being done today, you're a seller. You're not a buyer. You're a seller. So where you are today and where you're going to be at that point in time, who knows? And again, nobody's really dealing anything right now. There's one guy that everybody feels might be available, but even if he is available, for the Blue Jackets to get involved, they would have to have an agreement in principle that there would be an extension signed once they acquired him. And let me take that on to this next question, which is from Bobo, who says, I know someone will ask it here, so I will. Taylor Hall is apparently up for trade. The Jackets aren't going to mess with the possibility of another rent-a-player, right? Well, yeah, that's right. You can't go out and get a guy like Taylor Hall and then have him walk. For what? Especially right now, New Jersey's not in the playoff picture. The Blue Jackets are in the same spot. You would have to have him say, I'll sign an 8-year extension when he got here. That's the only way that you could possibly do something like that. So, again, that's the one guy that people think is going to be on the move. And then even if he is on the move, is he going to hold out until the summer for a new contract? Will he go somewhere as a rental player? It's very possible. It's very possible he'll go somewhere as a rental. The Blue Jackets can't do that. They can't get into that kind of a situation again. And I don't think they will. I just don't think that they would. Now, I know they wouldn't. They wouldn't put themselves in that spot. Lauren says, Alexander Wenberg has 2 goals and 7 assists for the season. Everyone seemed pleased with his start, but how do you feel about his play recently? Honestly, I never understood what happened with him, but I feel like a lot of people on the outside blame Torts. Your thoughts? Well, the easiest thing in the world to do is blame John Tortorella for most anything. It's really easy, and the people on the outside love to do it time and time and time again. And John Tortorella has been very upfront and honest about Alexander Wenberg. He has tried everything. He's tried to get under his skin and tick him off. He's tried to, put his arm around him, and he's tried to coddle him. He's tried to kick him in the butt, and nothing seems to work. And you're absolutely right. Early in the year, he looked like this was going to be different. But in recent weeks, it looks like it has looked the last couple of years, and that is not what the Blue Jackets need out of him. That's not what is expected out of him. He's got to be a better player. I told you there was more than one guy's name on the list of who has to be better, and Alexander Wenberg is on the list. There's no doubt. And, he's now been on that list for a couple of years, and that's why there's so much focus on him. Is he the kind of guy that needs to go to a different situation? Does he need new scenery to get him rejuvenated? Or is he the guy that got a big money contract and now he is never going to put up the points that he did before he got that contract or in the first year of that contract? Who knows? Who knows? We don't know right now. We really don't. All we know is what we see, and that he has been struggling for the last couple of years. We saw that it looked different at the beginning, but now it is looking more like the same. And that is not good for Alexander Wenberg, and that is not good for the Blue Jackets. R. Stewart Walton says, is it time for Yarmo to blow this Blue Jackets team up and start to despair for Lafreniere? Did I say that right? I don't know, because I'm not even into the prospects and who's going to be the number 1 overall pick this coming June. But because I got the question, I did look it up to make sure. And Alexis Lafreniere, and again, I'm not I'm not French, so maybe I'm not saying it right. But he's the guy that is expected to go number 1 overall. He plays in Rimouski in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and Sidney Crosby played in Rimouski. And there are a lot of comparisons being drawn between the two players, although Alexis is trying to downplay all of those comparisons. But I'll tell you this, he's played there for the last 2 years, and in 60 games in his first year, he had 42 goals, 80 points. 61 games last year, he had 37 goals and 105 points. And so far this year, he's got 17 goals and 59 points in 28 games. So the numbers look good, but it is not time to despair for anything except for trying to get yourself back in line to winning games. That's all. So it's not going to be a tank job. It's not going to be looking for. This is probably the last time until the Blue Jackets are out of the playoff race officially. If they are to be out of the playoff race officially, that's the next time I'll talk about prospects in the draft. Okay, I'll do it here because I'll humor you here in early December. But I'm not going to talk about it again. I don't care. I don't care who the next 18-year-old savior is supposed to be. And I've seen this act play out numerous times. I've seen the Blue Jackets have a chance to finish dead last and be in the hunt for Connor McDavid and or Jack Eichel. It didn't happen. I've seen them have a chance to bottom out and be in the hunt for Austin Matthews. It didn't happen. So color me crazy, but until I see it, I'm not going to believe it. I'm a doubting Thomas on this, okay? But I'm just telling you, on the second day of December, I don't want to talk about this. I no longer am going to talk about this because there's no reason to talk about it right now. Okay? So there's my early gift. I have humored you with that. Let's see. Craig says, should we give Alexander Texier should we give Alexander Texier a chance to play some center? Well, he has played a little bit, just a little, not much, taking some face-offs, a little bit of center. Again, if things don't start to improve, and they're not horrible, it's not the end of the world. It's just should be and could be better. But, at some point, I think they're going to give him more of an opportunity to play in the middle. And let's see what he can do there. Dan says, Torch calls out players like PLD in press conferences. Why? Well, why not? Well, I'll tell you this. Here's my experience with coaches, okay? Coaches, and the good coaches especially, they only, as you say, quote-unquote, call out guys if it is something that they have told that player usually repeatedly. They've at least told him once, usually numerous times. They've told him about something. And the something is not changing. And then finally, when it happens in a game, they'll bring it up in the media. Because for every player and every coach that tells you, I don't listen, I don't watch, I don't read, lie, lie, lie. They do. There's no doubt they do. And if they don't do it, somebody does it and tells them about it. Okay? That's even worse because when somebody tells them about it, it may or may not be right. Anyway, a lot of times coaches use the media to reinforce the message. And, oh, geez, he just said the same thing on TV that he's been telling me privately for 3 weeks and I haven't done it. Now I got to do it. Now everybody knows. Now I got to do it. Sometimes they do that. And a guy like Pierre-Luc Dubois, and I don't know, did he just call him out? When did he call him out? I'm not sure when he called him out or if he called him out. I mean, that guy he usually leaves alone because that guy is getting the job done. But when he needs to give him a shot, he will in that venue. So that's why. That's why. Look, they've always told the player that the coaches that don't last are the ones that never tell the player and just tell the media. The good coaches, they've already told them it's not changing, then they tell the media. Terry Allshouse, are there playoff possibilities yet, or is it early yet? No, it's early. And it might be getting late early, but it's still early, okay? Anyway, how about an easy question? Jason R., did you have a nice Thanksgiving? I did, Jason, and thank you for asking. You know what the nicest thing about it was? There was no game. There was no practice. It was in between a Wednesday game and a Friday game. Lost the Wednesday game. Didn't feel like doing anything. Didn't really have to do anything. We cooked at home and just had a family day, and it was nice. There aren't many of those this time of the year, believe it or not, in my business. If you listened to my Time Out with Torts podcast last week, you heard he and I talking about it. It's a work day, but then he ended up giving them off, so it wasn't a work day. But it was nice. It was nice to do nothing. I never left the house, and it was nice. So, again, thank you for asking. Brad Fleming, what is the update on Brandon Dubinsky? There's no update. Brad, there's no update. I haven't, in fact, you mentioning his name is the first time I've heard somebody mention his name in quite some time. So there's no update. Still hurt. Looks to be long-term. How long-term, who knows? But don't count on him coming back anytime soon. And even if he did, would he just be on the same list of guys that aren't putting the puck in the net based on what we saw last year? Probably. And that's not a knock on him. I'm just being honest with you. I mean, he's not going to come in and be a savior, and I don't know if that's why you're asking it. Maybe it's not, and I'm unfair even to bring that up. But I don't, again, haven't seen him, haven't heard from him, haven't heard about him. So there's no update except that, which is status quo. Next question here. Trevor Kinney. There's another name on the list. Here we go. Any particular reason why Josh Anderson can't bury a breakaway? It feels like he gets at least one a game, and it's so frustrating to see his work never pay off on them. I noticed this a lot last year, too, although not to this degree. Absolutely right, Trevor. Not to this degree. But he can't even put the shot on net. He's not even getting the puck on net on those. How many has he just completely shot over the crossbar, hit the glass, shot it wide off the boards? Again, 27 goals last year, 1 goal this year. He has said that he's not still hurting. I hope he's lying. I do. I hope he's lying about that. And it's just, it is. It's mind-boggling, right? It's mind-boggling how many chances he's had, and he still only has 1 goal. And I don't know, it's a contract year for him. I don't know if that pressure's getting to him, and maybe he would be better with a contract, but, to get what you think you're worth, you can't go from 27 to 1 and be missing those opportunities. And he knows that. I know he knows that. But again, he's on the list. He's on the list of frustration right now. And he's frustrated. That's the whole thing about this, okay? I can sit here and I can tell you I'm frustrated, you're frustrated, Torts is frustrated, Yarmo's frustrated, whoever. But what you have to remember is these guys are human. They're frustrated. Do you think Cam Atkinson wants to have 4 goals in December? No. Do you think Josh Anderson wants to have 1 goal in December? No. So they're frustrated with themselves. And again, it's about them getting through it. That's their mental hurdle, to get through that in their head, transfer it into goals, and get back to where you should be, need to be, have been. That's it. But, I'm not sitting here, I'm saying everything that everybody knows, including them, and it's up to them to change it. They know that. They feel the pressure. They're human. And that's part of the problem. If they were a robot and they just went out there and did things, then that puck would probably find the net every single time. But they're not. You're coming down the ice, puck's bouncing on you, you're looking at the goalie, you're trying to pick where you're going to shoot it. He makes the last-second adjustment. You change your mind. It happens. But it's happened a lot. It's happened too frequently to Josh Anderson. And that's just true. Trevor says, also, why do you say talking with blank during interviews with people? Is it for things like radio breaks or just kind of a quirk that you have as a radio personality? I don't mean this in a critical way at all. It's just a stupid curiosity that I have. Trevor, it's a good question. I don't take offense to it at all. And I'll tell you exactly why. Because when you're doing an interview, and especially if it's on a podcast and it's a long-form interview, if it's going to be 10, 15, 20 minutes, you cannot assume that somebody is coming in at just that moment and they automatically know who you're talking to. You just can't, especially when you're doing something live on the air, and that's really where it comes from. I mean, on a podcast, it might be a little bit different because you can back it up and stop it and go forward and see, on the listing who the interview's with already and all that stuff. But if you're doing it live, if I'm doing a live radio interview, and maybe you weren't there at the beginning of it, and you get in the car and you turn it on and the game comes on the radio and I'm talking to somebody, and if it goes 10, 12, 15 minutes without me saying who that person is and you don't know who it is, it's frustrating, right? I mean, think about it. You're trying to grasp everything in your mind and you're trying to put it together and who is this? And once you know who it is, you realize why they're saying what they're saying a little bit more and all that jazz. So if I don't every couple of minutes reset and tell you who I'm talking to, and if you've been there from the beginning, you're fine. But if you come in midstream, you don't know. Well, that resets it, and so now you know. So that's why it is. It's not a quirk. It's a tool. It's just a tool to keep the listener involved. And on TV, you can turn it on, and it wasn't even on TV. Sometimes you see the guy and you don't know what his name is or what his position is or whatever, and there you can do it with a graphic. You can put it right underneath and, it's that guy. Okay, I got it. But on radio, we can't do that. There are no graphics. So it's just a reminder of, I'm talking to John Tortorella. And like on that one, I understand. Like if you go on the Torts podcast, I do, you get it. It's Torts, but you never know. You can't assume that everybody knows everything. And I've said this to you before, and I'll say it again. This fan base is still growing, and there are so many of you that know everything. You recognize voices and faces, and you don't need me to reset it for you and tell you. But then there are others of you that are new to this, and you're still trying to figure out who's who and what's what and what they do and how they sound and what they might be saying, and you can't figure it out, and you need that little bit of a reset, and that's a great thing because this fan base needs to continue to grow and grow and grow. And, of course, last year it grew leaps and bounds by going into the second round of the playoffs and with that team that was here last year. And, at times when it struggles, I think that's even more important, especially for the newer fans. How do you deal with the struggles? And who's this guy talking about it? And who's this guy that you're talking with and what he's saying about it and all this stuff. So that's a very long answer to what I consider a very good question, and I appreciate you asking that question. And I had some other questions on here that I didn't get to, but I'm going to hold on to those and get to them, whether it's next week or whether I just do it on another show or what have you. But there's some good ones about game day routine and all that stuff, and we just got into all these good solid hockey questions that I wanted to get out of the way today. So if you asked one of those questions and I didn't get to it, just hang in there because I'll get to it at some point as we go along here. But always great questions. That's one thing. You guys never disappoint, whether the team's winning or losing or they're, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, they're well thought out. They're well worded, well asked, and I appreciate that a lot. So thank you very much for that. Blue Jackets are going to be back on the ice tomorrow night. They'll take on the Arizona Coyotes. That'll be a 7 o'clock game at Nationwide Arena. You can hear it on the Blue Jackets radio network with pregame coverage starting at 6:30 tomorrow night. That'll do it for the Monday Mailbag edition of CBJ in 30, presented by Tel Ohio Credit Union. I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.